One of the biggest perpetrated lies in tech is that you need an antivirus software. Except you probably didn't know that your antivirus in 2021 is nowhere near what antivirus products did in the 1990s. They became worse for both your security and your privacy. John McAfee, who came up with the McAfee antivirus in 1987, would say himself when he was alive that an antivirus today is useless. I'll let you in on another secret. Your antivirus cannot stop a zero-day malware. Not only that, it exposes you to even more threats. In this video, I'll explain how antivirus products went from doing something simple to now being a vector for intrusion into your computer or phone. It's basically a Trojan horse. Later, I'll explain an alternate approach that will be tremendously safer for you and will stop most viruses cold. Nothing is foolproof though, but an antivirus isn't helping your cybersecurity. Stay tuned. I'm on the platform Odyssey.com and I'm now one of the top creators on there. Just for insurance, in case I get deplatformed, please follow me there using the link in the description. I have a non-logging VPN service, BytzVPN. My company also sells de-Google phones and VPN routers. These products are made to make your identity disappear on the internet. And hopefully this video will explain why these products are important. If you're interested in them, they are on my app, BraxMe. The link is in the description. The antivirus industry is a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, so I expect that organized trolls will attack me for what I say. But I'm not beholden to any corporate entity, so today you will learn the truth. First, I want to give you a little history of how antivirus products worked in the past and how they've evolved, and frankly, not in a good way. Antivirus products started being mainstream in the early 1990s when the internet became a thing. I remember in the 1990s when you simply connected a computer to the internet and within an hour or less, it would already be infected with a virus. Those were the early days of malware and cybersecurity. One of the most common attacks on a computer was to replace a system file on Windows so your computer will have a permanently embedded malware. This would turn your computer into a bot that can then be used by third parties as a slave computer without your knowledge. And the most common way of inserting a virus on a computer was to embed an executable in an email as an attachment, or to insert a virus when you download some file from the internet. So when you click on malware, it installs a fake system file and your computer is compromised. The solution used by the antivirus of the day was to recognize malware through the file system. An antivirus scans your file system on a regular basis, and using a recognition process called heuristics, the antivirus looks for signatures of known viruses and then confines these and removes them from user access. By the way, it so happens that this old-fashioned approach is still used by Windows Defender today. This is the built-in antivirus in Windows 10. Also, I should mention that there are fewer viruses on a Mac and on Linux, and most people survived on these operating systems without an antivirus. This is not an accident. There's a reason these OSs perform better against malware, though nothing is immune to malware, but I'll get to that. The antivirus companies wanted to sell you better and better mousetraps, at least in your perceptions. So they started adding features that did more and more things and sounded good. You will not notice the bad things that an antivirus will do other than slowing your computer down. Big time. So let's examine what the new innovations were in antivirus land since the original McAfee days. The problem with the old antivirus approach is that the virus files were not detected until after they already infected your computer, and only when the antivirus performs a hard disk scan. So to counteract this, antivirus products were designed to access files entering your computer ahead of the user. One of the earliest approaches to getting ahead of a virus infection was to scan email before it reaches your inbox. Instead of your email client going directly to your email server, it was actually your antivirus software that picked up your email, scanned it, and then sent it into your inbox if it passes the scan. Now, this was already dangerous. Antivirus products could have been Trojan horses, since they could in effect read email in advance and forward it to third parties, or delete selected emails or modify them, especially since antivirus products used a rule set that was downloaded weekly. Then the antivirus evolved further. They were embedded in the file system process itself. Every time a disk write was involved, the antivirus would get into the middle of the file write and pre-scan the file. Then it could intercept malware from getting written to disk. One of the most egregious and most dangerous evolution was the justification for defending against a phishing attack. New antivirus products like Avast will install a fake root certificate in your computer. Then this fake root certificate will allow the antivirus to see all your encrypted TLS traffic, or HTTPS. This is very dangerous, since whoever has the private key of this fake root certificate can in effect cancel any encryption on that computer. And by the way, Avast is now the second largest antivirus company worldwide, and they also sell VPN products. So understand what I'm saying here. Imagine using a VPN product offered by an antivirus company like an Avast or Norton. If a fake root certificate is installed on your computer, someone can quietly read all your internet traffic and it would be completely open, completely unencrypted, completely exposed. Supposedly, the purpose is for the antivirus to scan for dangerous websites, but this means that to the antivirus, there is no secret on your computer. I want to make clear that I'm not accusing these antivirus products of performing these kinds of attacks, but it is obviously within their technical capability to intercept all internet traffic. So for the right kind of financial incentive, everything becomes easily doable. It goes beyond this. This became reality already. The product Kaspersky was basically hammered in the USA because it was accused of spying on government agencies. What happened was that a US three-letter agency was developing some malware for offensive use. Kaspersky somehow detected the malware in the computers of personnel running Kaspersky antivirus. And the problem is that the Russians got a hold of the malware, and thus US cybersecurity secrets were revealed inadvertently. When an antivirus detects a file falling into its rules, it will forward the file to HQ for inspection, which for Kaspersky was in Russia, and in this case, it actually became a real spy app. The justification for this was that they needed to study new malware. And by getting a copy, they can examine the malware and then create heuristic rules to recognize them in the future. The problem is that basically an antivirus can be given a rule to capture any kind of file. We saw that they can catch offensive malware. How about a BTC wallet? So Kaspersky was banned from use in the US government, but I'm sure some other antivirus was used as a substitute. Why is everyone so obsessed with having an antivirus? Let me explain the next big lie with antivirus products. I want to make sure this is emphasized and is clear. No antivirus product can stop a zero-day attack. The main purpose of an antivirus in today's world is to stop the quick spreading of known malware. Known. In the original McAfee antivirus of the old days, someone at the McAfee HQ would get reports of some malware. Post-attack, obviously. Then the antivirus HQ staff would study the file and then identify a signature that the antivirus would recognize and use that signature to block the file on the computer. If you understand this process, someone has to get attacked first. Then the antivirus company has to get a copy of the malware. And then they have to research a signature solution. So by the time that completes and a solution is sent to all antivirus users via updated virus signature files, it is no longer a zero-day malware. Zero-day means undiscovered malware. Malware exists in plenty of computers, completely undiscovered for some years. Those that are created by state-level players are particularly good at hiding. An antivirus would not have any defense against them until someone discovers them. Again, for clarity, the real purpose of an antivirus is to prevent the spread of known malware. And mostly it's for kiddie viruses, not the serious ones. An antivirus actually exposes a greater attack surface. In other words, a cyber attacker will have more avenues to attack a user with an antivirus than those without one. In order to defend a machine, an antivirus probes the input coming in from the outside world in advance before the user interacts with it. So file downloads are pre-examined, email attachments are pre-read, websites are pre-checked before display. I already explained the man-in-the-middle MITM dangers of this. An antivirus takes over the incoming channels called ports on the computer and uses that to get ahead of the user software before those apps encounter a potential malware. So let's say a bad player sends you a malware via an email attachment. It could be a zip file with dangerous executables in it. The antivirus will download the attachment in advance, which slows down your computer, of course, and then it will actually take out the contents of the zip file. And if there are executable files, it will load those executable files in a sandbox space and run them to see what they do. If the executables misbehave, then the antivirus will stop them. In theory, it sounds like a sophisticated defense, but in reality, it introduces such severe dangers that hardly anyone recognizes. First, the antivirus is installed as a privileged app. In other words, it has administrator or root rights. This means an antivirus is authorized to read and write to any privileged space, like the system files area. So, if you can beat the antivirus, you will have gained admin access to the computer. Let me just give you some examples of tricks used to defeat this antivirus defense. A good malware developer has many tricks up his sleeve. For example, the attack is often delayed, so the malware executable doesn't do anything immediately that can be discovered by the antivirus, or it spoofs some normal behavior, so it gets into the system. Another attack is to make the attached file so large that it crashes the antivirus, or the malware developer may know of 0 days on certain file types. Another approach is that the Trojan malware just sits there and opens a communications channel only. Then the malware connects to a remote controller server to await instructions, possibly weeks later. The innocent looking app will then download the malware separately, disguised in a way that cannot be discovered. For example, a malware downloads an image file, and then the malware is actually embedded in the image, which it then extracts and saves into an executable. This advanced technique allows new malware to be inserted in and out of the computer as needed by the attacker, and often without detection since the moves appear benign. This was used to attack the device of Angela Merkel, the German Chancellor. And for those not in tune with the latest attacks, there is a framework tool called Metasploit that can actually be used where the malware never gets written to disk. The communications portion, called Meterpreter, loads malware into memory directly as needed. Because no attempt is made to write malware to disk, then there is no avenue for the antivirus to detect the attack. As I mentioned earlier, by their nature, antivirus products are installed with privileged rights on a computer. An advanced antivirus product becomes a doorway for an attack. Thus, you actually have more attack surfaces than ever before. Antivirus products are easily subject to direct attacks through buffer overruns and so on, which cause the antivirus to crash. This is even more true because most antivirus products are written in C or C++, where these types of programming errors are very common. Once you crash a privileged process, then you basically gain admin rights on the computer, which obviously renders all defenses moot. An attacker can basically intentionally fake out an antivirus and crash it while it examines a file in its sandbox and do a few things to take over the computer. One specific attack is for malware to access known fixed areas of memory where the antivirus is operating and insert malware directly. And another is to take control over the sandbox itself, which can be run in a privileged space. Three-letter agencies have found vulnerabilities in so many of these antivirus products using the lines of attack I just described here, and many of these were published in Wikileaks Vault 7. Those that were mentioned in Wikileaks may have been fixed by now, maybe, and we knew these only because of Wikileaks, but new attacks discovered since then would not be known and would still be propagated in these products. One thing to note is that many antivirus products are sold with different names but actually share the same antivirus engine. So a vulnerability on one actually extends to many other brands. Let me summarize the antivirus flaws. Number 1. An antivirus is basically a man in the middle. It's seeing more than you expect. Number 2. An antivirus expands your threat surface. You will be more vulnerable to a serious cyber attack than without an antivirus. Number 3. An antivirus slows down your computer. Number 4. An antivirus is useless against zero-day malware. Number 5. An antivirus is hackable and inherently dangerous because it has root access. Given what I just explained as the inherent danger of antivirus products, then what is my recommendation? What do you do? Let me return to something I mentioned earlier. I said that macOS and Linux users appeared to be safer from viruses compared to Windows. And even more interesting, phone operating systems like Android and iOS do not suffer from direct virus attacks. These platforms are harder to crack even without an antivirus. The explanation often given is that Windows itself is just more vulnerable by design than these other platforms. Or another explanation is that there are just more Windows users, so it is more lucrative to attack Windows first. Although this is partially true, it is by no means the real reason, especially since operating systems like Android are even more popular. Pay attention to what I will say here because this is part of the solution to malware. The reason Linux is safer from viruses is that Linux by its nature defaults to an unprivileged user. You have to specifically take action with a password to do anything with administrator or root rights. The default installation of Linux is that you do not have privileged rights. This shuts down the ability of malware to insert itself in dangerous areas. Linux is based on Unix, and this has been the way that operating system was designed since day one. This is the same with macOS, which is also based on Unix. You can still install malware on any computer, but it would require social engineering. In other words, the user has to be tricked to installing something intentionally. That, my friends, is a separate topic and is not connected with an antivirus, so I will not get into that. In contrast, when you are on a Windows computer, you are by default the admin user. Thus, you are exposed to possibly running dangerous processes that can change the system itself, especially things that run with no user interface. So, the solution is simple. On any computer, always do your normal activity as a non-privileged user. I explained this in my other video on how to set up a computer safely. Create a new user that is not an admin or root and use that daily. If you need to do system-related tasks like installing new apps, you switch over to the admin account. If you accidentally download malware, because you are not a privileged user, you will be unable to do dangerous things like replace system files. A very simple solution and draws from the experience of users of Unix and Linux. By the way, a Mac OS user does not automatically get a non-admin user either, so it's more vulnerable in my opinion than Linux. However, the rest of the processors are very similar to Linux. So if you have Mac OS, then do the same as Windows. Set up a new user with no admin rights. There's nothing further to do on Linux. Next important tip. If you're using Windows 10, then all you have to do is enable Windows Defender. Windows Defender is an antivirus. It is free, but it is based on file heuristics only and checks the file system after the fact. It does not have the advanced capabilities and vulnerabilities of the modern antivirus. It is basically the equivalent of the old McAfee antivirus from 1987. It is very limited and its purpose is simply to stop the spread of known malware. Since it doesn't have the attack surface of the other antivirus products, it would be safe to use for protection and may be necessary in a corporate environment, since spreading malware may have worse effects. It was actually a good thing for Microsoft to at least include this to protect the reputation of their OS. However, it is still possible for this product to behave as an MITM or man in the middle. I think Windows already does so many MITM things that this would not be the best vector for them to put such things. They already control the OS. So I think the additional risk is minimal. If you are using Linux, macOS, Android, or iOS, use nothing. In spite of attempts to tell you that these operating systems can be attacked by malware, which is true, you will not be saved by an antivirus. And at worst, be exposed to all kinds of MITM possibilities, and new attack services will be open. The way to prevent any computer from attack is basically to not use the device as a privileged user and to regularly do a computer factory reset. A factory reset will clear out all the malware. For sure, I recommend this on all computers. Do a factory reset on a regular schedule, at least a couple of times a year, and more often if you're in a sensitive profession. The reason I suggest this is that there is no way you will discover the hidden Trojan malware that downloads custom attacks like Metasploit or Meterpreter. The low-tech way to solve everything is with a factory reset. I would keep my data in a separate disk drive so I never have to worry about backing them up. And every time you install a new software, keep a copy on the second drive so factory resets become simple. This idea of regular factory resets is the principle behind the Tails operating system, likely the most secure Linux distro. It has no file persistence. It always gets restored to factory after a restart. So what I'm saying here has precedence. Alternatively, you could keep data files in another drive and then do a restore from a copy of the boot drive to restore it to some known state. That would be even more user-friendly than the method used by Tails. I'm not saying these procedures make it easier. Unfortunately, cybersecurity is never easy. But don't fall for the fake promise that an antivirus will actually protect you. As the US government even discovered, the antivirus was used to spy on them. Not sure the government learned. The advice to distrust an antivirus comes from the Zucking IA itself. It's stated in Wikileaks, though my analysis here goes way beyond that. In case you think I'm not being straight up, I want to emphasize that I do not use an antivirus other than Windows Defender on Windows. I have not been inundated with viruses at all. This video was a special request of my subscribers. I hope you find my videos of value. If you do, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you get more of this content. You can support the cause by joining us on Patreon or checking out our VPN and de-Googled phones in my store. Thank you for watching.